Welcome to a Community Partners interview where we explore the organization's opportunities and resources that look to make change in our daily lives. I'm your host, Sean Pickard, and you're listening to Voices for Ability Radio, all abilities, all the time. Today, I'm joined by Andrea Randon, the Interim Executive Director for Inclusion New Brunswick. Inclusion New Brunswick is known for being rooted in their vision, mission, values, and principles. Their vision is for all individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities to live full and valued lives in all aspects of society. Their mission is to lead the creation of opportunities for individuals with an intellectual or developmental disability and their families to live full and valued lives in all aspects of society. Their values are that all people have equal rights to opportunities in the manner and extent of their choosing. All people can contribute and bring value to our society. Communities must be open and inclusive, and people deserve their own voice and the support to exercise their rights. Thank you for joining us today, Andrea. How are you doing?
I am doing great. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you so much for allowing me to come in and talk about the work of Inclusion New Brunswick.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to hearing about Inclusion New Brunswick and exactly what they do. But before we get into that, tell me a little bit more about you. What is the Andrea Randon experience? What inspired you to work at Inclusion New Brunswick, and why work with individuals with disabilities?
Well, thank you very much for asking. I've actually been with Inclusion New Brunswick since 2014 in a variety of different roles, spanning from frontline to strategic leadership. And I've always been very passionate about human rights and social justice. I have a background as an educator, so I have a lot of experience working with children and youth with a disability. So that's what kind of led me to Inclusion New Brunswick.
That sounds like a fun little journey to have different roles along the way. You kind of get a little bit of everything and learn who does what and what's going on. So that must have been a very interesting journey for you, Andrea.
Yes, no, absolutely. I also have, friends, and I have family who have been involved in the disability service sector too over the years. So I feel like I was almost kind of born into this line of work, which also really fuels my passion for social justice and wanting to make change and really promote inclusion in our communities and in our province as a whole.
So you're in the family business then?
I guess you could say that.
Now, while I was doing my research for our little conversation here today, Andrea, I saw that there's a number of programs and supports that Inclusion New Brunswick offers. Can you tell us a little bit more about those programs and supports? What do they entail?
Absolutely. And I can give a little bit of history and context too into how we've evolved into some of the programs and support and services that we offer today. So a lot of people still kind of recognize Inclusion New Brunswick as the New Brunswick Association for Community Living, which used to be our former name. And we are a provincial and nonprofit organization that was formed in 1957. So we are getting ready to approach 70 years of supporting individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities. Our work involves representing the best interests and well-being of children, youth, and adults with intellectual or developmental disabilities and their families. And the work that we do is so critical and it's so important because New Brunswick actually has the second highest disability rate in the country at 35.3%. So we deliver a variety of programs and services across the province, not just both in English and French, but also we support individuals of all stages and all ages. So it's kind of what's really unique about Inclusion New Brunswick is that we are a one-stop shop. So our mission certainly is that it's simple, but it's very powerful. We are building a province where everyone belongs and can participate fully in community life. And we do this through a variety of core areas in our work. So one of them would be family and individual support, which is really the cornerstone of the work that we do. And this is through our family support program. So we are committed to empowering strong families and individuals by providing them with the information and tools and training needed to advocate for themselves and others. And through this program, too, we also foster family connections and peer networks, while also promoting awareness and understanding of human rights, relevant policies, how to navigate complex government systems, and access the supports that you need. So our family support program is certainly one of our fundamental programs here at Inclusion New Brunswick.
I was just going to say that's a lot going on, but there's got to be more.
There is, yes. We also certainly play a very pivotal role in inclusive education here in New Brunswick. So as an organization, we support lifelong learning by promoting access to inclusive, high quality education. And this is right from like early childhood through to adulthood. So our organization supports seamless transitions for children and youth across different educational stages and also into life after high school. So we advocate for inclusive policies in early learning and childcare centers, as well as the K-12 public education system and even in post-secondary. And we also ensure that we're providing, very comprehensive training for educators throughout the province. And we do this through our Inclusive Communities Institute, which is an online asynchronous learning platform designed to provide education and strategies on best practices in supporting inclusion. So by influencing education systems to embrace inclusive philosophies, we help to ensure that educators and systems are fully equipped to support all learners. And so we do this both at an advocacy system level type of support, right, to supporting individuals and families as well in that program.
And you do this all twice as well, I would imagine, because English and French in New Brunswick, very, very bilingual province.
It is, absolutely. So we do ensure that, when individuals or families are calling Inclusion New Brunswick, that we are providing our service in their language of choice. And same thing with working with our community partners in our schools as well.
I'm just kind of floored by what's going on at Inclusion New Brunswick here, Andrea, because it's a big province for the population that is there. There's a lot of land and there's a lot of stuff going on at Inclusion New Brunswick. But it's the number two province for population with disabilities. I didn't know that.
Yeah, 35.3%. So we do certainly have the second highest disability rate in Canada. So we've been spending the past few years really trying to ensure that we're adequately meeting the needs of the disability population in our province, which has resulted in even growing and expanding some of our programs so that we could have further reach and really support individuals and families to access the support that they need to live meaningful lives in community.
That is just incredible. I also saw a resource page. What type of resources do you have going on your resource page?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We do, and we try and redirect a lot of families and community partners to a resource page because we've spent many years developing a variety of different resources and training guides, and this is all based upon lived experience from individuals with disabilities. And so some of the resources that we provide can be anything from, transitioning from, it could be childcare to the K-12 system to life after high school with a focus on employment or post-secondary education. We provide resources and support on will and estate planning, power of attorney and supportive decision making, how to be an effective advocate, as well as resources on all of our different programs and services that we offer across the province as well.
Okay. I think here's where we're going to get into a bit of a in-depth conversation, shall we say, Andrea, because and I'm going to key in on the K-12 that you've mentioned, the school age area of things. What are the restrictions on any of the services at Inclusion New Brunswick, such as age, disability type, caregivers or family members only, things of that nature? Are there any restrictions at Inclusion New Brunswick?
Well, our mandate is to support individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities, and also families as well. We do provide person-centered planning support. So it's really about putting the person with the intellectual or developmental disability in the driver's seat of their plan. And so we do support all ages, all stages, but certainly in the early childhood education and even some of the K-12 system, personal support networks and families are really the biggest natural support in somebody's life. And we certainly rely on families and support families to be effective advocates for their child. When it comes to the high school years, We support students. Actually, we support close to 300 students across the province in 60 high schools in transition planning to adult life. So that could look like, getting involved with planning for employment and accessing employment opportunities, accessing post-secondary education, or life in community. So it could be participating in community in meaningful ways through volunteering or recreation and leisure and planning for a home of your own. And so throughout the high school years, it's a very pivotal time for teens because there's a lot of unknowns of what the future will bring. And we want to make sure that we're walking alongside not just students, but also their families and talking about the opportunities that can exist and planning for what their goals are that they've identified.
Oh, that is just such an incredible. I love hearing that. I mean, high school is hard enough, right? Without having someone guide you through what you want to do. So now let's talk about the individuals that you work with for a little bit here, Andrea. What are the myths and misconceptions about individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities?
Yeah, I believe that we have a lot of work to do in community to dismantle the misconceptions as it relates to individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities. I believe that there at times can be this misconception that folks with intellectual or developmental disabilities might require a lot of support, might not necessarily be capable to pursue or access various, things in life. And it's simply not true. Everybody requires support in some level, in some capacity, whether you have a disability or not. And so much of our work is really growing the awareness and capacity of, employers and educators and people out in community to recognize the value that individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities can bring and really support meaningful participation and supporting folks to have access to the good things in life, like, employment opportunities, living in a home of your own, learning alongside your peers. And we spend a lot of our time at Inclusion New Brunswick really providing this type of education and dismantling some of those misconceptions.
And there are a lot of things to dismantle, that is for sure. Now, my favorite question coming up here, Andrea, but I'm going to ask that you don't identify anyone for me. Please don't use any names. But tell me a success story. When someone reached out to Inclusion New Brunswick saying, I need help, what supports were put in place? What happened when someone asked for help?
Sure, absolutely. I can speak to a recent success story in regards to our Transition to Work program, which supports students in grade 10, 11, and 12 to plan for employment post-graduation. And we had a family reach out looking for support in terms of what comes after graduation. Like, what do we expect? What types of supports and resources are available? And so we had an opportunity to sit down and walk the family and the individual through our Transition to Work program and what they could expect. And they were extremely excited to know that we take an in-depth, person-centered approach to planning for employment, but also post-secondary. The family at the time wasn't aware about the options in terms of inclusive post-secondary and what certain, pathways people could pursue to achieve their career goals. And so we had an opportunity to talk about, the work that happens in grade 10, which is all discovery, like really learning about the person, who they are, their strengths, their skills, their interests, their maybe need for support. And then in the grade 11 year, they participate in a work readiness program where they learn about, how to write a resume or apply for a job or practice interviews, right up to how to even navigate conflict in the workplace, because that can come up too. So we spend a full year dedicating our time to supporting students with the realities of the work world. And then our grade 12 year is around taking what they've learned from this work readiness program and applying it to a real work setting through experiential learning. So that could be co-op or volunteer. And we support students for 9 months post-graduation. So once students graduate, which this student did, we support with access to jobs in their area of interest. And so we've had much success with our students graduating and stepping right into employment post-graduation because of that in-depth planning. But not only that, we have a student right now who has enrolled in post-secondary education, so NBCC, and they are getting ready to take one of their, it's called the Social Services Community Worker Program, to get their certificate there so that they can also be involved in supporting individuals with disabilities to be more connected and involved in community and to meet their goals. So it was really nice to be able to provide that reassurance to the family, to walk the individual along what this program can do to support them. And now they're starting to see the benefits of that, early planning to access the type of support or to reach the type of goals that they have. And they are certainly on their way in doing that. And that's really exciting.
That is really exciting. But I have to dig a little more here, Andrea, because I know New Brunswick is very heavy in forestry, right? Office work, trades, things of that nature. How do you make sure these individuals get exposure to things that might not necessarily be in their area if it's something of interest to them?
Yeah, it's really about finding out what is it about that interests them. I think that it's a pretty natural process to, figure out what it is that you want for a career. We try on many hats, many different jobs, gain lots of different experience. And we do this through the experiential learning process. So whether that's through co-op or volunteering or summer employment, gives our students a really good idea of what to expect. And also through this process, they identify not only what they like to do, but sometimes what they don't like to do. And that's just as important. And so the more exposure and experience that we can support our youth in terms of access to different employment opportunities really helps shape their, interest or path to that type of career. And the more that we kind of pull back the layers of, what is it about this job that you really like, can also lead and open up the doors to lots of other types of jobs too. So we do talk about the realities of the labor market in New Brunswick, and we do our best to kind of align the skills and strengths and interests of our students to opportunities in New Brunswick. And sometimes there certainly is successful matches, and sometimes people also recognize that they need to gain more experience to get to where they need to go.
And that's a huge thing right there. Can the individual realize you need more experience to get where you want to go? It's good to have that little bit of support and help getting you there. In regards to events, everybody's got something going on, right? Whether it's a bowl-a-thon in the winter or a gala in the summer type thing. Are there any events coming up for Inclusion New Brunswick?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So we are in the process right now planning for a celebration of 40 years of inclusive education in New Brunswick. And we are hoping to put on a bit of a summit to provide some context and history of inclusive education in the province, and also talk about how far we've come and where we also want to go. We feel that recognizing, especially New Brunswick, which is known to be a national and global leader in inclusive education, this is a perfect opportunity approaching 40 years to really highlight some of the success that we've had and, some of the challenges as well and how we can work through that. And every year we also recognize some of our champions of inclusive education, from EAs to teachers, and we we have opportunities to talk about their story, the wonderful work that they're doing, and how they're contributing to not just inclusive education, but an inclusive society through their work. So we are hoping to launch this event in October of 2026.
I might have to sneak into the back of this event, Andrea, just so I could, absorb that information to hand off to others. Call them.
Yeah, we would welcome that.
In your experience, I'm sure you've come across a couple of different things that leave you scratching your head. What is the one thing that you see happening over and over again to individuals with disabilities that shouldn't be? How do we stop it?
Yeah, I think the biggest barrier, honestly, is some of the systemic barriers that we run into. And it's kind of what we had chatted about earlier, right from misconceptions and trying to dismantle, those misconceptions of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, but also even just the navigation and access of support. Based on our experience of supporting individuals and families directly, we see the challenge that happens, even just as simple as trying to access a social worker to gain additional supports, to accessing, income assistance, the disability tax credit. Sometimes the processes aren't always as accessible. And it's something that we certainly have experienced through our work directly supporting individuals and families, but it also informs our advocacy and policy work to address some of those barriers. So I'd have to say, yeah, the systemic barriers are probably the most challenging and take the longest amount of time to work through and to address.
That is actually a huge realization there, Andrea, the fact that it's systemic in some cases. But if someone wanted to become a member or volunteer with Inclusion New Brunswick, what would be the process for joining as a member and then as a volunteer?
Well, I would encourage them to reach out to our organization, and we can receive requests online through our website at info, so info at inclusionnb.ca, which is our direct email, or to go on our website to access our contact information too, which is www.inclusionnb.ca. Or they could also call our toll-free line at 1-866-622-2548. And they could share, if they would like to become, a volunteer or learn more about our organization, learn about being a part of our board. There's different avenues to be able to reach out and share that interest, and we'd be more than happy to connect with those individuals.
Excellent. So a lot of ways to get a hold of folks at Inclusion New Brunswick. Now, Andrea, I've got to shake you down on this one, right? We've talked an awful lot about what goes on at Inclusion New Brunswick, but what is the one thing that everyone needs to know about Inclusion New Brunswick?
Like I mentioned earlier too, I feel like Inclusion New Brunswick is very uniquely positioned because we do support all ages, all stages, and we are a one-stop shop. We support empowerment of individuals and families. We work to build the capacity of our communities. We are part of an inclusion movement, and we believe that everybody should belong, and everybody has an opportunity to contribute meaningfully to their communities. And we want to find more people that want to be a part of this movement with us.
I like that. Who wants to be a part of the movement? I like that. Now, if listeners are looking for more information, Andrea, they just want to find out what's going on, they want to help out, they need help themselves, whatever the case may be, how do they get a hold of you? I know we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but let's go through the 1-800 number, the website, all that kind of stuff again for folks.
Perfect. So they can call us directly at our toll-free number at 1-866-622-2548, or they can reach out to us through email as well at info at inclusionnb.ca. Or they can go directly to our website at inclusionnb.ca to find out more about the programs and services that we offer, as well as our resources and information on the different programs that we provide as well.
Oh, the information on the different programs is going to be very, very important. But we are running out of time here today, Andrea. Would you like to say goodbye to the folks at home?
Yes, well, thank you very much for having me today. I always love an opportunity to come on and talk about the impactful work that Inclusion NB does, and to share a little bit, not just about who we are, but how we can support and how we can advocate. And we're always looking for folks to reach out and want to be a part of this inclusion movement with us. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for coming out, Andrea. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Andrea Randon, the Interim Executive Director for Inclusion New Brunswick. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today, everybody. I'm Sean Pickard. Until next time, bye for now.